Good afternoon and welcome to today's press conference. I'm Mia Rabson with the Canadian Press and I will be moderating today. We have with us Alexandre Lévêque, Assistant Deputy Minister for Europe, Arctic and the Middle East, Julie Sunday, Assistant Deputy Minister of Consular, Security and Emergency Management, and from the Department of National Defence, Vice-Admiral Bob Auchterlonie, who I believe are all going to be giving an opening statement, and then we will take questions, starting in the room with one question and one follow. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand function, and I will call on you after we have finished with questions in the room. Go ahead, please.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Messieurs, dames, journalistes, bonjour. C'est un plaisir d'être avec vous encore aujourd'hui. By way of an update since yesterday, I would like to begin by mentioning that Minister Joly visited Israel earlier today. Her main objective was to meet with partners and get a first-hand assessment of the evolving situation so that Canada can identify areas where support is most needed. The minister heard firsthand about Hamas's brutal terrorist attack on Israel and underlined Canada's steadfast support for Israel and its right to defend itself in accordance with international law. She also discussed the worsening humanitarian situation in Gaza and met with Canadians who took Canadian military flights from Israel to Athens. Yesterday, Canada announced that it is providing an initial $10 million in funding for humanitarian assistance, which will help provide food, water, emergency medical assistance, protection services, and other life-saving assistance. As Minister Hussein noted, this initial funding commitment will allow partners to scale up their efforts and provide assistance to people in urgent need. We are aware of reports that Israel has warned citizens in northern Gaza to evacuate within 24 hours. We will continue to monitor the situation closely. The protection of civilians is paramount. En terminant, je tiens à réitérer que l'ambassade du Canada à Tel Aviv et le bureau de représentation à Ramallah continuent de travailler dans des circonstances et des conditions extrêmement difficiles pour répondre aux besoins des Canadiens. Les missions seront ouvertes cette fin de semaine et prêtes à porter assistance aux Canadiens qui en éprouvent le besoin. Je me tourne maintenant vers ma collègue Julie Sunday qui pourra fournir plus de détails sur la réponse consulaire actuelle du Canada.
Merci, Alexandre. It's good to be with you again today for this technical briefing. I'll provide some updates on the latest details regarding consular needs, the support being provided, including support for assisted departures. In the last 24 hours, the Emergency Watch and Response Center here in Ottawa responded to nearly 600 inquiries. We have received over 3,300 inquiries since the beginning of the crisis. We had over 80 responders working overnight in our Emergency Watch and Response Center. Our missions on the ground in Tel Aviv and Ramallah continue to provide consular services to Canadians. Actuellement, en Israël, plus de 6 500 Canadiens sont inscrits au service d'inscription des Canadiens à l'étranger et 485 Canadiens sont inscrits en Cisjordanie et dans la bande de Gaza. De ce nombre, nous aidons présentement plus de 2200 Canadiens résidents permanents et leurs familles. As was updated yesterday, Global Affairs Canada is aware of the deaths of 3 Canadians. We also continue to follow up on the cases of 4 other missing Canadians. Yesterday's assisted departures were conducted smoothly, and the 2 Canadian Armed Forces flights were able to assist the departures of 236 people from Israel. I can confirm that 2 additional Canadian Armed Forces flights are taking place today. The first flight included 135 passengers and left Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport at 3 p.m. local time and arrived at 5 p.m. in Athens. The second CAF flight included 125 passengers. It departed at 7 p.m. local time and is expected to arrive at 9 p.m. in Athens. We are continuing to work out the details for the upcoming CAF flights to take place tomorrow and are taking into consideration those who observe Shabbat and ensuring they are on subsequent flights. We remain in direct contact with potential passengers to ensure they are travel ready and to prepare manifests. For those wishing to return to Canada from Athens, there has been good uptake of the Air Canada option for onward travel, and will continue to monitor this need and help to facilitate all departure options. Let me now address assisted departures from the Palestinian territories. For the Gaza Strip, the situation remains very difficult. We are aware of reports that the IDF has now warned people in northern Gaza, north of Wadi Gaza, and the UN to evacuate to southern Gaza within 24 hours. This is resulting in a displacement into southern Gaza of over 1 million people. We are also facing increasing challenges of communicating with Canadians in the Gaza Strip, given that electricity is down and telecoms are affected. We learned this morning that there may be an opportunity for individuals to leave through the Rafah Gate into Egypt tomorrow between 12 p.m. and 5 p.m. We are actively engaging with Egyptian and Israeli authorities to ensure that Canadians, permanent residents, and their family members will be able to leave. We're working incredibly hard to connect with our allies and the UN to be able to support this departure. Our mission in Cairo is working with Egyptian authorities to ensure these Canadians can then be transported to Cairo so that they can return to Canada. For assisted departure options from the West Bank, we continue to develop ground transportation options to Jordan and are consulting local authorities so that we can transport people by bus. Our mission in Jordan is preparing to support this movement across the border. We are in touch with interested Canadians in the West Bank to help them prepare, and we will be sharing further details in the next few days. Earlier today, we updated our travel advice for Jordan as a result of calls for large-scale protests on the Dead Sea Highway and surrounding areas, and in other parts of the country, including in Amman. We are advising Canadians in the area to exercise caution, expect heightened security measures, avoid all demonstrations and gatherings, and to follow the instructions of local authorities. The situation in Lebanon continues to be volatile and unpredictable. We are watching closely and are well aware of the large number of Canadian citizens and permanent residents in Lebanon. Over the past days, we have updated the travel advisory to advise Canadians to avoid all non-essential travel to Lebanon. And we have directly informed the registered Canadians in Lebanon of this change. Yesterday, we further updated our advice to advise Canadians to not travel any further south than the Litani River due to violent clashes along the border with Israel. I cannot emphasize enough that this is our best advice to Canadians, and in order to limit the risks to travelers, we encourage them to take this very seriously. Thank you, and I'll be pleased to answer questions. I'll hand it over to Vice-Admiral Auchterlonie.
Merci, Julie. Je suis le chef d'état-major, le chef des opérations de la Force armée canadienne, et aujourd'hui, je vais vous faire une brève mise à jour sur nos opérations. Yesterday, 12 October, two Canadian Armed Forces flights transported, as Julie noted, 236 passengers from Ben Gurion Airport into Athens, Greece. Today, we expect similar numbers. Canadian Armed Forces has two planned flights, which will also include the transportation of approximately 30 Israeli citizens returning to Tel Aviv at the request of the State of Israel. Today's first flight left Athens just after noon with 19 Israeli passengers on board, plus a contingent of 5 personnel from Global Affairs Canada, and arrived in Tel Aviv. That first flight has since departed Israel and is with approximately 135 passengers and has just landed in Athens in the past hour. The second flight departed Athens in the afternoon, local, with 9 Israeli passengers, and has arrived in Israel this afternoon. And that second flight is either just departing or has just departed in Ben Gurion as we speak, with approximately 125 personnel on board. The Canadian Armed Forces footprint, as I noted yesterday, is about 59 Canadian Armed Forces personnel currently supporting this mission, including the Air Task Force, including crew and the medical teams, as well as I have a Joint Task Force headquarters, including liaison officers both in Athens as well as in Cyprus. In the coming days, as noted by Julie, we anticipate 2 daily flights by our CC-150 Airbus detachment. However, as I've said in the past, this could rapidly surge or curtail as the situation changes, and we're going to respond to global affairs requirements. Thanks, Julie.
Okay, we'll start with questions in the room. One question and one follow. I remind you, if you are on Zoom, to please use the raise hand function. I will come to you when we're finished in the room. We'll start with Dylan Robertson from the Canadian Press.
Thank you for being here and for giving us these briefings. And on record, it helps us to do our job, so thank you. My first question is just about the Canadians in Gaza, the numbers that we're looking at in terms of citizens, PRs, foreign relatives, as well as the communication that you have to Canadians within Gaza. You'd mentioned the advisory to go south, and I'm just wondering if that's what Canadian officials are also asking Canadians to do?
Thanks for the question. So, yeah, we're working very hard to support people in Gaza. It is an incredibly difficult situation there right now. We are working to update our travel advice to provide additional information. But I've said specifically today what our advice will be. In terms of numbers, we're looking at about 150 individuals total in Gaza right now who have identified themselves as requiring assistance. The majority of these people are Canadians, but there are mixed families, and that will create additional sort of requirements in terms of ensuring everybody has documentation and is able to transit. I can also say I spoke with our ambassador in David De Silva in Ramallah this morning. The mission has reached out directly and called as many of these individuals as possible over the last 24 hours. We know this has been a terrible week for Canadians in Gaza. Many have had to move because of issues, structural damage, et cetera, on buildings. We are reassuring them that we're working really closely with our allies and with the UN to be able to ensure that all of the right documentation is in place to be able to leave. So we are also being realistic, which is that we are going to have a very short period of time to notify people when that opportunity arises. So we will continue to work to support their exit in a very volatile and fast-moving situation on the ground. Thanks.
Thank you. And my follow-up is just about the demand for flights. Yesterday, someone had mentioned a bump up in demand over 24 hours. I guess I'm just wondering if that's stabilized, if it's increased, or if that's actually gone down to the still high baseline that we had 2 days ago.
Yeah, so it's still going up in terms of the demand for flights, but what we're finding, though, is that people are finding other routes out. I recognize we gave you higher numbers yesterday. We had a number of no-shows at the airport, and our assessment is that individuals have found alternate routes out and are trying to get out as quickly as possible. But right now I have close to 1,300 individuals in Israel who are seeking assistance. Thanks.
Tonda McCharles, Toronto Star.
Actually, I might have just clarified that. So when you said earlier about 2,200 Canadians seeking help or have asked for help of the registered folks, they're not all seeking flights, is what you're saying. 1,300 are seeking flights. Is that right?
So when I'm saying 2,000 Canadians who are seeking, 2,200 Canadians who are seeking our assistance, in Israel, I'm saying there's 1,300 of those 2,200. In Gaza, I've said there's a further 150. In the West Bank, we're looking at 190 individuals. And then we have almost 600 people whose location is not clear to us, and we're reaching out to try to confirm that because it wasn't provided when they registered.
Right, but are they asking, those 600 who you don't know where they are they asking for help to fly out or documents or like, I guess what I'm trying to understand
They're asking for the most part for help flying out, but But again, people's situations change, and they may have been on our list from 3 days ago and found another route out. So we're validating that list. So last night, for example, the Emergency Watch Center made 1,000 calls. You know, we keep adjusting our numbers, taking people off the list, adding other people to the list. So it is very much in motion. We also had an additional 600 people reach out to us last night and add themselves to the list. So the numbers are constantly in flux.
Can you elaborate on the kinds of conversations and meetings the minister has had today in Israel? Who's she met with, who's she talked to, and also what conversations, if any, or what information, if any, you can share on whether any of the 4 missing Canadians are indeed hostages. Secretary Blinken today said that the U.S. is working on American hostage release in Gaza. Is the Canadian minister doing that?
Maybe I'll take the first
Yeah.
part of the question on the minister's very short trip to Israel and her interactions. So she spent only a few hours on the ground in Israel, arrived early afternoon, Tel Aviv time a few hours ago. She had an opportunity to meet with Canadians departing for Athens, but after that had a bilateral meeting with her counterpart, Foreign Minister Cohen. As I've said in my opening remarks, the primary purpose was really to get firsthand account, and it was a very personal way and human way of looking at the impact of the crisis, of the attacks. Minister Cohen shared some video and photographic evidence of the massacres perpetrated by Hamas, and then of course they had a conversation about Canadians in West Bank, and Minister Joly asked for assistance in facilitating their departure, which her counterpart said Israel would do what they could to assist. And they, of course, talked about the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and the minister conveyed the government's expectation that that civilians be protected and that all measures be taken to help them. She has since left Israel. She landed about 20-30 minutes ago in Amman, Jordan.
Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News.
Thanks very much. Hi, I was wondering if just on this evacuation through Egypt, how cooperative is the Egyptian government being on this? Because they have said they don't want Palestinians to get into Egypt. And also, are you talking to Israel about it to get their cooperation to have this evacuation window tomorrow?
So any evacuation into Egypt requires the cooperation of both Egypt and Israel. And so we are engaged. So our representative of Canada and Ramallah, who I mentioned earlier, is engaged with Israel in terms of ensuring that we have green lights for the Canadians departing and their family members. And we are also working with Egypt to ensure that they also have that. So our mission in Cairo is busy doing that. Again, you know, there's a lot of information. It's changing continuously. But right now, we're just very focused on having a window, potentially, tomorrow. That could change, but working really in earnest to take advantage of it if it does arise.
Thanks. And Hamas is claiming that 13 hostages have died, including foreigners. Do you have any sense of whether there could be Canadians among them?
I can't comment on any of those cases. As I mentioned earlier, we have 3 deaths of Canadians that we have noted, but beyond that, I don't have any additional information.
Kyle Duggan, Politico.
Hi, I have a couple of questions about the flights. Are you working with other countries in terms of filling these planes with people from countries that are also trying to get their citizens out?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we always We always collaborate, cooperate with our partners. We have a daily call with our Five Eyes partners right now to look at what everyone's doing and where there might be options to support each other. We also, of course, have a much broader group, and this was a group that we worked very effectively with in the evacuation in Sudan, where we had lots of Canadians leaving on European flights and lots of Americans and others leaving on Canadian flights. So our objective is to ensure that we're supporting each other where we can. Right now, though, for our flights, the focus is predominantly on Canadians, permanent residents, and their family members.
In the future, they need to, you need to fill space on the flights. Is that something that you're considering?
You know, where we're not taking a seat from a Canadian, of course we will consider supporting our allies in their efforts as well.
And I just wanted to know a little bit of clarity around what people who are being evacuated are on the hook for. So I understand that they are coming back to Canada at their own expense through the Air Canada flights. But are there other fees that they might face, consular fees or anything like that? Are there anything that needs to be waived?
To my knowledge, there's no fees that would need to be waived. As we're saying, you know, CAF and the Government of Canada is covering the evacuation flight to Athens. We are helping people secure hotels, et cetera, but onward travel and is at the expense of the Canadians.
Steve Chase, Globe and Mail.
Hi. What concerns does the Canadian government have about the evacuation order that Israel has issued to residents of northern Gaza?
We're very concerned about the well-being of civilians in Gaza, as I mentioned earlier. And that's why in the government's communication with the government of Israel, we have conveyed this and conveyed our expectations that civilian populations be protected.
My second question is the Rafah border crossing. Just to sort of sum up, are you telling Canadians in Gaza to be ready to cross the Rafah border crossing tomorrow between 12 and 5?
We will be making Canadians aware that there is a possibility, but we are not going to tell Canadians to move until we know that that is a possibility and we have confirmation that these individuals can get across that border. The last thing we want is Canadians getting stuck at a border. That border, there are a number of security challenges at all the borders into Gaza. We know that there have been bombs at both borders in the last week. So just to flag, you know, we will provide that information. It will likely be very short notice, and we will be reaching out to people who are fully approved to cross that border.
Tom Perry, CBC News.
Yeah, on that, are you working with other countries on this? Is it specifically Canadians who can get out? Is it other nationalities who can come out? Like, what kind of work is going into that?
So, absolutely. I mean, there are many other countries with nationals in Gaza. We are all engaged. We are working in collaboration with the UN, with the Egyptian authorities. So everybody is working on this. Yeah, it will not just be Canadians. That said, we were very pleased today that the minister was able to meet with Foreign Minister Cohen and get reassurances that there would be assistance and attention to Canadians who are seeking to depart.
At this point, though, I mean, what assurances do you have? Because it still sounds fairly tentative.
100% it is very tentative, yeah. Until we know for certain that border is open during those hours and that we know who is approved to move across, there is a lot of uncertainty around this, yes.
Who have you gotten assurances from? I mean, what can you tell us about, like, what are you hearing?
Excellent. Do you want to
So are you referring to
Well,
which?
if you're getting assurances from somebody that this gate is going to be open between 12 and 5, who's telling you that? Who are you getting assurances from that this is even a possibility?
Are we talking about Gaza or about the West Bank? About Gaza. This is communication that has been conveyed to our embassy in Cairo from the Egyptian government in coordination with the Israeli government.
We're going to go online now. Melanie Marquis, if you want to unmute yourself.
Pardon. Je veux poser une question par rapport aux critères d'accès pour les vols d'évacuation. C'est un cas particulier qui a été porté à notre attention. Une femme dont le mari est israélien, dont le premier enfant a une citoyenneté canadienne et israélienne, mais dont le deuxième enfant a seulement une citoyenneté israélienne. Est-ce que cette famille-là aurait dû être acceptée à bord d'un vol parce qu'on leur a dit qu'ils ne pouvaient pas, qu'ils ne remplissaient pas les critères? Est-ce que c'est normal?
Je pense que j'ai bien compris la question. Si on a une famille où il y a peut-être une femme ou un mari qui ne soit pas canadien, mais l'époux est canadien, bien sûr, ils auraient l'accès au vol avec leurs enfants. Puis on travaille étroitement avec les affaires mondiales pour être bien certaine que tout le monde a tout ce qu'il faut en tout ce qui concerne les documents.
OK, mais ce que je vous dis, c'est que cette famille-là, donc, le mari est israélien, le plus jeune enfant a juste la citoyenneté israélienne, mais la femme est canadienne. Est-ce que c'est normal que ça a été refusé? On leur a dit ce matin qu'ils ne pouvaient pas monter.
La femme est canadienne, elle a accès au vol avec ses enfants et son époux.
OK, mais c'est pas arrivé. Mais on lui a refusé l'accès.
Philippe Bonneville from Cogeco.
Bonjour à tous, vous m'entendez bien? Oui, donc pour le bénéfice des auditeurs en français, peut-être nous réexpliquer un peu pour qu'on puisse bien comprendre qu'est-ce qu'il y a comme possibilité demain à la frontière égyptienne, à quel moment vous allez savoir qu'est-ce qui peut se passer, la fenêtre de possibilité pour que des Canadiens puissent peut-être éventuellement passer du côté égyptien.
Alors, on est encore en train d'attendre pour des assurances qu'il y aura l'opportunité de traverser cette barrière demain. On n'a pas cette assurance. On a seulement un fenêtre qui a été nommé pour nous comme possibilité. Alors, nous sommes en train de contacter les Canadiens, de voir s'il y a des familles qui ont besoin d'autres documentations pour les non-Canadiens, pour qu'ils puissent avoir l'occasion de partir demain s'ils veulent partir.
Et quelle information disposent actuellement les Canadiens qui sont à Gaza? Est-ce que vous leur avez dit qu'il y a une possibilité déjà pour demain ou ils ne sont pas au courant pour l'instant? Qu'est-ce qu'ils savent dans le processus jusqu'à maintenant? Alors,
nous avons reçu cette information il y a seulement quelques heures, vraiment. Alors, nous sommes en train d'avancer, de téléphoner tout le monde, mais je vous assure que nous avons déjà été en contact avec la plupart de ces personnes. Notre mission à Ramallah, ils ont fait des appels les dernières 24 heures pour qu'ils puissent établir le contact avec tout le monde. Ils ont aussi mentionné que s'il y a une opportunité, ça va arriver très très rapidement et tout le monde doit être prêt. Alors, tout le monde sait que la situation est très complexe. Il y a beaucoup de changements tout le temps. Et nous sommes nous sommes en contact avec eux, tandis que nous connaissons que la situation est difficile à Gaza.
Annie Bergeron-Oliver from CTV News.
Hi, you were mentioning that some of these flights had Israelis who were coming back to Israel. I'm wondering if those were reservists, if there's any information you can provide about the individuals who came, I assume, from Athens to Israel, and the numbers again, please.
Hey, thanks, Annie. And just as I said, this was a request from the State of Israel, so we had flights going inbound today and meeting the request from the State of Israel through Global Affairs Canada. We've had approximately 30 Israelis heading back. I don't have the details, the information on who they were, but it was a request from the State of Israel, which we got through the Global Affairs Canada. We certainly actioned that. So we had 19 on the first flight inbound and 9 Israelis in the second flight returning to Tel Aviv from Athens.
Thank you very much. And just as a follow-up, just to confirm, when you're talking about a potential exit tomorrow through Gaza, are we talking about an opening of a humanitarian corridor that the United Nations has been calling for? I haven't heard anyone specifically use the word humanitarian corridor.
Humanitarian corridor can have different meanings. Typically, it refers to an opening where hostilities are put aside to allow for the transport of humanitarian equipment and goods, sometimes for the evacuation of personnel. This is really, this has been qualified as a window, an opening during which specifically foreign nationals could be evacuated from Gaza through the southern gates.
Catherine Morrison from the Ottawa Citizen.
Thanks so much for your time today. I'm just wondering if the government is in the process or planning to recruit volunteers from the Foreign Service posted in any other areas to help with evacuations.
Yeah, so it's a big effort across our network, and as I mentioned, I mean, so for starters, in Ottawa, we had over 80 people yesterday evening and overnight. These are people, you know, in addition to my standard team who have day jobs and who are working overnight around the clock right now to help bolster our resources. So we have really surged our capacity here in Ottawa. We also are moving individuals from our standing rapid deployment team. So these are highly trained individuals. They're in missions across the world. And we pull them and mobilize them into action when we have crises like this. So we've sent 15 to Amman, to Tel Aviv, to Athens, and they are bolstering our mission capacity in those places. And we will keep surging people in as required to bolster our resources and ensure the evacuation goes smoothly in terms of our operations. So I would say, you know, it's been a really effective mobilization of our network across Europe and here in Ottawa. Thanks.
Thanks so much. And just as a follow-up, I'm just wondering if you've had any challenges with communication reaching the missions, and if you have any concerns about that in the future.
In what way?
Sorry, just with
to clarify.
Sorry, no, just with interruptions. I'm wondering if you've had any issues just reaching or communicating with the missions.
Thank you. No, so far we have not had any problems in communicating with our missions in the region. The lines and means of communication we've been using have been reliable.
Great, thank you.
We'll go to Sandrine Vieira from Le Devoir.
Oui, bonjour. Si vous avez l'assurance que ce sera possible de traverser demain vers la frontière égyptienne, quelle sera la consigne envoyée aux Canadiens à Gaza? Est-ce qu'il faut, je comprends qu'il faut être prêt à réagir rapidement, mais concrètement, à quoi est-ce qu'ils peuvent s'attendre comme consigne, surtout si on parle de délais très serrés?
Alors, nous allons donner des conseils dès qu'on a l'information, mais on sait que oui, ça peut être difficile avec la situation, avec l'électricité, etc. C'est pourquoi nous avons fait des appels pour que tout le monde connaisse le contexte. Et puis, alors, nous allons essayer, avec tous nos moyens de communication, de leur aviser. Alors, c'est-à-dire nos avis de voyage, et puis aussi avec un contact direct entre nous et ces gens à Gaza.
J'ajouterais peut-être simplement que ce ne sont pas tant des assurances qui ont été fournies, mais une fenêtre qui a été identifiée de façon préliminaire. Les détails doivent encore nous parvenir. Ce que nous faisons en attendant, pour réitérer ce qu'a dit ma collègue, c'est de tout faire pour communiquer avec les citoyens canadiens pour qu'ils soient prépositionnés au cas où cette fenêtre se matérialiserait.
Et si cette fenêtre se matérialise là, et que pour quelconque raison des Canadiens manquent l'opportunité, êtes-vous confiant qu'il y en aura une autre?
On ne peut offrir aucune certitude en ce moment. La situation à Gaza est extrêmement volatile, donc on va maximiser chaque fenêtre qui est offerte pour l'extraction, pour l'évacuation, pardon, des Canadiens.
Marika Walsh from the Globe and Mail.
Hi there. Thanks for taking our questions. Can you please clarify how Canadians can get on lists and how the government will avoid a repeat of the scenes in Kabul if we're talking about one gate opening and 1 million people displaced?
So, of course, there's different ways to contact us. Our first bit of advice is for everyone to register on the list of registration of Canadians abroad, because then they'll get messages from us as things change, as the travel advice changes, etc. They can call us at the Emergency Watch and Response Center. Our phone number is on the website. They can email us at sos@international.gc.ca. And they can request our assistance. Everyone the number of individuals, as I mentioned, who have requested our assistance across Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza over this past week is now at 2,200, as I mentioned. And assistance, the request for assistance right now is for assistance departing. But as this isn't all people are requesting. They're also sometimes requesting travel documents or other types of assistance. Sometimes it's just for information. But we are accessible, and we have people working around the clock to be able to talk to people and answer these questions.
Okay, sorry. Just to clarify, I don't think that addressed my question about the safety at the Rafah border crossing. And as part of that first question, can you please specify if Canadians in Gaza have already contacted you, should they expect they're already on the list to cross the border? And then I have a follow-up question on the missing Canadians. Can you please provide any more details on whether they are confirmed to be alive and missing, or whether it's unclear if they have been killed and not yet found? And where are they from? Are they all people who live in Canada and were visiting Israel? Any more specificity there?
Okay, so in terms of the 150 people we're focused on who have directly requested our assistance in Gaza, we are in contact with them to be able to validate their papers, et cetera, if they have non-Canadian family members. And yes, we are proactively working to get approval for them to be able to cross borders should the opportunity arise. So we're very much actioning that right now so that we're ready and that we do not miss the window, when it's open. On the second issue of the missing individuals, so we know there's Canadian citizens missing. we're in contact with their families. I can't comment on or speculate on whether any of these individuals are deceased or are missing. We are right now, if we are treating this as a missing persons case, it's because we have no evidence that they are deceased. And so we are very much working to find these individuals.
Do we have, excuse me, do we have a few more minutes to come back to the room for questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want some clarity. I'm not really clear on the whole sort of process around tomorrow and if this gate opens. What assurances you say the Egypt government has assured the Canadian ministry in Cairo that they're willing to let it be open between 12 and 5 and Canadians can pass through that. And you have some assurances from Eli Cohen about both Gaza and West Bank departures of Canadian citizens, or just West Bank? Like, I'm confused about what exactly is clear to you from both those governments.
Let me try to clarify. Thank you for this. So in the conversation between Ministers Cohen and Joly, Minister Joly made the explicit request that Canadians be assisted, Canadians living in the West Bank, be assisted in a land border evacuation on their way to Jordan, and that is the portion that her counterpart said the government of Israel would be willing to assist with. Gaza is a different situation, and again, there are no strict assurances per se. This is a very volatile, very dangerous situation. It is a very dangerous border crossing point. There are actually two crossing points. There is one coming out of Gaza and another one entering Egypt, and a bit of a 100-meter or so zone between the two. So what we know and what we have been advised of by the Egyptian government, not just Canada, other embassies based in Cairo, is that an opening was being created. This is between humanitarian agencies, the government of Israel, and the government of Egypt, in order to facilitate the evacuation of foreign nationals out of Gaza. This situation, like I said, is volatile, could change at any point, so there's no hard guarantees about this. But what we have been wanting to do is make sure that we are prepared should that window materialize.
So there's no guarantee from the government of Israel that foreign nationals can leave Gaza?
Like I said, it's a fluid situation. This is being discussed right now. We were told a few hours ago that this was being considered. We know that the government of Israel and government of Egypt have discussed this, so that's the current plan as we understand it.
Right, but just to clarify, right now, even though it's fluid, you don't have any assurance from Israel that any foreign nationals can leave Gaza.
So Minister Joly raised this today, and there was a commitment from Ambassador Cohen that Canadians would be supported to leave the Palestinian territories. Foreign Minister Cohen, yeah.
Dylan Robertson, Canadian Press.
Hi there. Seeking an update on the hostage team that we've sent. If you could just provide any information on their activities, who they've been in touch with, and how many Canadian officials we're talking about.
So in terms of the team, I mean, they're there. They are engaged on the ground, and as I mentioned yesterday, the important piece is to be able to be in touch with authorities in Israel, to be connected into the U.S. team and other Five Eye partners and other countries who may be missing people also, and to benefit from that conversation. So we have, a number of individuals. I'm not going to be specific, but we are getting the information we need. We're pleased to be there because it is allowing us to have an in-depth discussion and to leave no stone unturned in terms of trying to access and recover, trying to find out where these people are and to bring them back safely to Canada.
And just a bit of a vague question for you, Ms. Sunday. I'm just curious, what is the top difficulty right now? I think you've touched on a few in today's briefing. I think before there's been references to the quality of information that gets collected. I think it's a volatile situation. I'm just wondering if you could walk through the top difficulty or difficulties right now.
Related to the missing persons issue, or
the evacuation?
More generally, my broad remit. I think it's very challenging. We're watching the situation change, hour by hour, minute by minute. We are really pleased that we're having the right discussions. It was excellent that Minister Joly was able to go and to have those discussions in place to help ensure that Canadian issues are being raised in the context of this crisis. We, of course, are working as quickly as possible to help as many people as possible. And so I'm incredibly, honestly, feeling very good about the level of support, from our international partners here, the level of enthusiasm. I can't tell you, these are really dedicated public servants who are working around the clock right now to help on all lines of action here. This includes Israel, it includes Gaza Strip and the West Bank. It includes also making sure we are giving good information in the surrounding areas like Lebanon and Jordan. We are, very, very much engaged, and we are trying to the best of our abilities to give the most accurate information to Canadians. Because while we work to help them, we also need them to, for example, look at our travel advice. This is an incredible service to Canadians. We work really hard to provide really good, accurate travel advice that's very regionally specific, so that Canadians can make, informed decisions about where they're traveling and how they're responding, because we want to ensure, again, our ultimate objective is the safety and security of Canadians traveling abroad. So that would sort of sum up where we're at.
Steve Chase, Globe Mail.
Yes. My question is for Vice-Admiral Auchterlonie. I think we have 4 challengers, unless I'm mistaken. Why wasn't Melanie Joly able to take a military plane from Ottawa to Athens or Israel? Was there a challenger malfunction?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Actually, I'm unaware of the fact is that those rates are rated through Global Affairs Canada in terms of that. And as I said earlier, the first flight in today had 19 Israelis on board, as well as a team of 5 from Global Affairs Canada. That was the Airbus going from Athens into Tel Aviv this morning.
I would simply say, as an answer to the question, that it wasn't necessary because she was able to go in through commercial means to Athens and then take a CAF flight over from Athens to Tel Aviv.
Okay, my follow-up question is about the people who need to give approval for foreigners to leave Gaza. You've talked about various players, but I didn't hear you mention Hamas. Maybe I missed that. The Israeli government tells us that Hamas has been preventing foreigners from leaving Gaza. That's the one element I didn't hear mentioned here. Is there any indication Hamas is willing to let foreigners leave Gaza through the Rafah Gate tomorrow?
Well, obviously, the Canadian government does not interact with Hamas. It is a terrorist organization enlisted in our criminal code, so we do not engage with them. So we don't have any specific information on the fact that Hamas would prevent people from moving. We've heard that there's been communication by Hamas in Gaza discouraging people from moving around and keeping their position. We've not seen any report at this point that they were physically refraining people from moving about.
Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC.
I was just wondering about how you are communicating with Canadians on the ground, given the difficulties you said you are experiencing. We've heard at least from one Canadian who says they've tried emailing, they've tried WhatsApping, and all they're receiving are automated responses, which are not helpful to them at this time.
So what I would ask in that case, one is to ensure, if someone emails us, they get a sort of rote response, and that email ask them for specific information. So my advice here is, 1, send us an email with all of your very, very specific information. 2, call the Emergency Watch and Response Center or our mission, both of whom are the Emergency Watch and Response Center is answering calls 24/7. And that way they will get someone on the phone to help them and to help understand the context that they're in. So that would be my advice.
Okay. And I know you mentioned numbers of Canadians who have contacted you from various places. I wonder if any have sought your advice from Lebanon.
I don't have that in front of me, but we have had some calls. I would say modest amounts of calls from Lebanon. Yeah. Under 100. Yeah. I don't have that on me. They're not asking, obviously, for assistance leaving because you can fly out of Lebanon right now. But they may be asking about our concerns about the conflict. They may want to provide registration information. They may want to get broader information about the region. So. It's a variety of reasons why people call. They may be calling because they want to have their travel documents updated, which is great. We're advising everybody to have their travel documents updated in that region.
Okay, that ends today's press conference. Thank you very much.